rejecting mandatory electronic transmission of results. Details now. Thank you for staying tuned. The world news at 12 begins with South Sudan's President Salva Kiir dismissing his press secretary David Amor Major and the chief administrator at the Ministry of Presidential Affairs, Valentino Del Maluet, following the appointment of a deceased man to a government committee on elections. The decision followed the presidential decree issued on January 30, which named Stuart Surba Budia as a member of a panel, tasked with leading discussions on the country's electoral process. Local media later discovered that Budia had died 5 years earlier, a revelation that triggered widespread mockery and criticism on social media, with many questioning how such an error could occur at the highest level of government. In a statement released shortly afterwards, the presidency announced the dismissal of the two officials. The statement said the office of the president had relied on the accuracy and currency of names submitted by stakeholders for inclusion on the panel. Back home in Nigeria, the remaining resident abducted from Kermin Wali town in the Kufana axis of Kajuru local government area of Kaduna state have regained their freedom, bringing relief to the community weeks after the attack. The victims were kidnapped on January 18, 2026, when suspected bandits invaded the area at dawn while residents were attending a church service. A community leader who spoke on condition of anonymity told journalists that the victims were released on Wednesday night under unclear circumstances. He explained that between 11 p.m. and midnight, heavy-duty vehicles were sighted moving into a forest near Maru town and later returned with the abducted persons in the early hours of Thursday. It is not clear whether any ransom was paid for their release or if the 17 motorcycles reportedly demanded by the kidnappers were provided. Earlier reports had indicated that no fewer than 177 people were abducted during the attack on the community. About 2 weeks after the incident, 80 victims, mostly children, reportedly escaped and took refuge in nearby forest settlements. Confirming the development, the village head of Kermin, Wali Ishaku Dan Azumi, expressed gratitude to the Kaduna state government and security agencies for their efforts. A security source also confirmed the development, saying the victims were released late Wednesday night. Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu has ordered the deployment of an army battalion to Woro, a village in Kayama local government area of Quir state, where Boko Haram terrorists killed dozens of villagers in an overnight attack. You will recall that Boko Haram terrorists under the command of Malam Sadiku killed about 170 locals in the attack that lasted for several hours. The state government put the casualty figures at 75, while the Red Cross said 162 deaths have been confirmed as of Wednesday evening. The president's words were conveyed in a statement issued by presidential spokesperson Bayo Ononuga late Wednesday. He said the president condemned the cowardly and beastly attack and described the terrorists as heartless for targeting the residents of the village. According to the statement, the president believes that the villagers who were Muslims were killed for refusing to be conscripted into a weird belief that promoted violence over peace and dialogue. Ononuga said the president commended the victims for rejecting radical Islam being propagated by the terrorists. The president urged collaboration between federal and state agencies to provide succor to members of the community and ensure those who committed the atrocities do not go scot-free. In the meantime, the Senate has passed the Electoral Act 2022 Repeal and Reenactment Amendment Bill 2026. After the third reading, it rejected a proposed amendment to Clause 60, subsection 3 of the bill, which sought to make the electronic transmission of election results mandatory. But Senate President Godswill Akpabio said in a swift reaction that the Senate retained transmissions of results as provided in the 2022 Act. The rejected provision would have required presiding officers of the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) to electronically transmit results from each polling unit to the IREF portal in real time after the prescribed Form EC8A had been signed and stamped by the presiding officer and countersigned by candidate agents. Instead, the Senate adopted the existing provision of the Electoral Act, which states that the presiding officer shall transfer the results, including the total number of accredited voters and the results of the ballot, in a manner as prescribed by the Commission. Now let's take a listen to Senate President Godswill Akpabio speaking on this development, where he claims that the National Assembly did not reject electronic transmission of results.
The fact that the Senate has rejected electronic transmission, that is not true. That is not true. Electronic transmission had always been in our act, and what we did was to end the electronic transmission, which had been in our act and which was used in 2022. So please do not allow people to confuse you. If you are in doubt, we will make up our final votes and proceedings available to you if you apply and you are entitled, so that you will see this Senate under my watch has not rejected electronic transmission of results. It's in my interest as a participant in the next election for such to be done. So please don't go with the crowd. Don't go with the crowd. We have retained what was in the previous provision. That's all we did. So if we rejected what was proposed by way of amendment and said let's retain what was in the previous provision,
still on the world news at 12, the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Namdi Kanu, has formally approached the Court of Appeal in Abuja to challenge his conviction and life imprisonment sentence handed down by the Federal High Court. In a notice of appeal dated February 4, 2026, Namdi Kanu is seeking the reversal of the judgment in which he was convicted on terrorism-related offenses. In November 2025, he was convicted by the Federal High Court and sentenced to life imprisonment on 7 counts of terrorism-related offenses. In his appeal against the Nigerian government, Kanu argued that the trial court erred in law and procedure by imposing sentence without granting him the right of allocutors, an opportunity for a convicted person to address the court before sentencing. He further argued that the court failed to consider relevant mitigating factors and other essential sentencing considerations before imposing the maximum punishment. Namdi Kanu prayed the Court of Appeal to allow the appeal in its entirety and to quash his conviction on all counts. He's also asking the appellate court to set aside the life imprisonment sentence imposed by the trial judge. You're currently listening to the World News at 12 right here on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. We'll now head into the news analysis segment, where I'll be joined by Somi Uranta. He's an entrepreneur. He's also a political, social, and national affairs analyst. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Uranta, and welcome to the World News at 12. Good afternoon, Mr. Somi Uranta. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Good to have you here. Good afternoon to you. How are you doing today?
Very well. Good afternoon to you too.
Good to have you here. Let's begin with the Electoral Act amendment as passed by the Senate. The Senate has denied rejecting mandatory election transmission of results, and we do know that the ADC, the PDP, other opposition parties and figures have been saying the reason why the Senate rejected mandatory electronic transmission of results is in order to give the ruling party, the power, or to give them more leeway, more leverage to rig in the 2027 elections. But Senate President Akpabio has said that's not exactly what happened, that they did not reject mandatory electronic transmission of results, rather that transmission of results will continue the way it was in the 2022 Electoral Act, which means the presiding officer can transfer the results in a manner that is prescribed by INEC. So they're basically giving INEC the power to decide which way they want to transmit the results, rather than putting it into law that the results must be transmitted electronically. Is this in the interest of Nigerians? And is that also a rejection of electronic transmission?
I think my concern is not about the Senate President. My concern is the fact that the opposition parties have not or do not seem to have smelled the coffee and rise up to the occasion. I don't know what they are dragging, what they are thinking, or what they are doing as it were for now. Because they need to, there's need for them to act now while they can, because it's unfortunate that they seem to be playing over the whole matter, and serious decisions are being taken, which will affect the outcome of the election. Because the way it is, if they don't put their house in order and struggle and fight whatever it will take to ensure that the election, the Senate or the Assembly, National Assembly, pass the kind of laws regarding this election or the amendments that will meet up with the yearnings and aspirations of Nigerians. Then, if they have not been able to, think in terms of that, then they have not done anything. Senate president and the ruling party will want the status quo ante maintained, and that will not go well with Nigerians. I think Nigerians too will have to rise up to the occasion and make a demand on this one, because governance is about the people. If they cannot do what the people want, then whose bidding are they there for? Who is paying them? Who kept them there? It's the people. So people must make demand and stand firm to ask them to do that. But I'm surprised that everybody seems relaxed. These few guys who are in the Senate and the House of Rep, they are not up to all the politically exposed people, who are ruling over the affairs of this nation. They are less than 10% of all of us. So they cannot pocket all of us. But if Nigerians will just allow them do that, do the way they like, then it's up to Nigerians to bear the brunt of it at the end of the day.
Do you agree with the opposition parties who are saying that the fact that the National Assembly did not mandate electronic transmission of result is giving a leverage to the ruling party to rig the 2027 elections?
That is a truth you cannot controvert. It's very clear. The ruling parties, because they are in control of the Senate or the legislature, if we have to go into election, the way the electoral law is, the way we use it in the 2023 election, that means what happened in 2023 will repeat itself. And then that also will impact negatively on our electoral process in Nigeria, because you see, it's important for Nigerians, if we want to make headway, if we want to be recognized among the community of civilized nations or even developing nations, we have to ensure the sanctity of the ballot, the sacredness of the ballot. You cannot be toying with people's ability to elect who they want to elect. And after toying with that, then you come and say you have a government, you have a democracy in place. No, it's not. Because the world has set a standard for a democratically elected government. So anything that falls short of the basic standard, it's an aberration. It cannot be called democracy. So the ruling party, where the legislature, of course, it's expected. They will want things to remain the status quo ante maintained to their advantage. The Nigerians, it behoves us to make a demand and see them do what we want them to do.
Electronic transmission or mandatory electronic transmission of results was not the only thing in that electoral amendment bill that has now been passed. There was also, declaring a tribunal's power to declare winners. There was also independent candidacy. Now, these are things that we're no longer hearing about. These are things that we're not hearing that the National Assembly has passed. Would you say they glossed over the majors and retained the minors in the passing of this electoral act?
I think the most important aspect of amendment that Nigerians are yearning for is the aspect that concerns electronically transmission of results. The system where you will collect, and as it's being done, everybody is doing it, so that, because what happens between collection center and the voting center, a lot happens. So if we want to bridge that issue, that problem, we have to ensure that everything is transmitted electronically, so that it will be clear for all and sundry that this is what is being received at the collection center. Otherwise, anybody can teach any figure and put it across to Nigerians, and we're obliged to take it that way.
Yeah, just like in 2023 when we saw the collation papers, you see the ones where some figures were cancelled, some looks like it was rewritten and all of that. But there are also other clauses that we need to talk about. That is like people voting without PVCs. There was also the talk of diaspora voting. The lawmakers rejected allowing alternative forms of identification rather than the PVC, because there was a provision for maybe people to vote with their NINs, but then they said no, people have to vote with their PVCs. Do you think that is a good one by the Senate?
Yes, the PVC remains the only legal and legitimate means of voting. Anything else cannot stand. But the issue is that is not even as important as what we are talking about here. But of course, it is okay that you can only vote. Any citizen can only vote, or citizens can only vote with their PVC. That's why it's called common voter's card. I don't know where the idea of trying to use any other means of this to vote.
Identification. All right, let's talk about vote buying. The lawmakers amended clause 22 to impose stiffer penalties. So they've increased the fine for offenders of vote buying from 500,000 naira to 5 million naira. Talking about vote buying, I'd like to use the November 8, 2025 Anambra elections as a case study. We did not see threats of violence. We did not see miscreants cutting away ballot boxes. We did not see, bloodshed and all of that. But one thing we saw from the opposition, from what the opposition complained about, and even the party in power, even the governor himself complained about, was vote buying. And yet, we did not see that anyone was arrested or prosecuted for that. And we were told, that somebody has to raise the issue, or INEC has to raise the issue before the people who were involved or who were caught in vote buying could actually be prosecuted. So this imposing of a fine on offenders, how does it come to play?
Well, I think vote buying has been something that politicians have been exploiting to the detriment of their opponents. More so when we are in power, we have a very weak accounting system. People can easily, deploy funds, state funds, into electoral issues. Use it to do what they want to do to influence the people's choice. It is something that we need to really work on to ensure that vote buying, is reduced to a very minimum. But it's not easy to get that done, because the people who are buying the votes are those who are politically exposed, probably who are in power. They use this money to carry out such dangerous action against the people. So if they decide to stipulate a penalty, it should be a penalty that is worth it, that would deter people from doing that, from vote buying. But the thing is that Nigerians seem to be so not interested and nonchalant about this whole thing.
No, but Nigerians have been talking about it. When you say they are being nonchalant, it's almost as if you are doubting that Nigerians have been talking about it. We've been talking about electoral amendment, and that's why I asked the question, would you say the Senate, the National Assembly, majored than the minor in this electoral amendment? We are seeing things about, the fine for votes buying. We're seeing things about PVC being retained as the main document for voting. We're seeing things about the time that INEC has to publish a notice of election. We are seeing things about when political parties have to submit their list of candidates, but nothing about diaspora voting, nothing about independent candidacy, which is most of what Nigerians have been pushing for in this electoral act. And so it's almost as if it's underwhelming.
You see, the thing is that when I say Nigerians are not active, it's one thing to talk about an issue, a problem, and it's another still to act on it. You see, when this party, APC, were in opposition, you know how they've been acting, how they were acting. They go out, they match their words with action. They show everybody that they are ready to take power from the PDP. The Nigerians and the opposition parties seem to be They care less about the antics of this of the ruling party. That's why they're having a field day. If the ones have been talking, it's just talk. How about occupying national assembly? How about demonstrating? How about protests? You see, the people who are the oppressors want to oppress you to no end, endlessly, until you make it impossible for you to be oppressed. Freedom does not come, on a platter. You must work for it. You must push back against the oppressor for him to release his stranglehold upon your neck. So when I say Nigerians don't seem to be nonchalant about it, we must make a concerted effort. So make demands on those people, exposed people who want to protect all of us, to show them that they are too big to enter whatever kind of problem the thing they have. Because if we don't do it, we will all be doomed. So this is not how a country is run. But if we stay back and say, look, we want to ensure our safety, we don't want trouble. If you don't want trouble, trouble will come, trouble will assail you, and then you won't know what to do at the end of the day. But Nigerians can rise up now and compare the legislature to do what is right, what Nigerians need. And the executive will have no choice but to approve it, but to sign it into law. But if we begin to speak and talk about it like this, they say, oh, these people are not serious. We must show that we are serious. And they don't have any choice but to bend, to our dictates.
All right, then. Let's quickly talk about security. It was a very, very, very tragic report when we heard about what happened in Quir State, where over 100 people in the community had their hands tied behind their back and massacred. When you see the pictures and the videos from that particular incident, it is very painful. It is very gory. It's something that you cannot actually put out on traditional media. And from what we are hearing, and even the president himself has confirmed, it's because these people refuse to accept a radical notion of Islam and Sharia, and that is why they were murdered. The president has directed the immediate deployment of an army battalion to Quir State after that massacre. But here is the question. Every time we hear of attacks in Niger, in Plateau, in Benue, the next thing we hear about is that, oh, troops have been deployed to keep the area safe. What about these troops being deployed before that happens? And then after some time, when it seems the community is safe and secure, the troops move out and then the attacks occur again. If we keep sending our military for internal protection like this, how many more would we have left for our external protection?
You see, our government has been very, very reactionary in their approach to insecurity. When it happens here, they run to that place when the matter is already, when the action has been taken. Then it happens in another area, they run to that place, they send security people to there and all that. There is no strategy. And I think that the reason for lack of strategy is not because of lack of capacity. It's because of collusion and complicity of the government and the military authorities in what is happening to Nigerians. I think that there is a certain agenda to maybe Islamize Nigeria, because you notice that no senior Muslim authority or observation has come out to condemn what is happening. And it's shameful that a country of 200 and something million or 230 million people, who are Muslims and Christians and indigenous African worshippers, we be killing ourselves as if we are fowl, we are chickens. It's unfortunate. It's against civilized norm. It's against the principle of humanity. How can we be killed like this and everybody just take it? It's like a normal, something that's normal now, a norm in our society. It's an aberration. It is unheard of that human beings will be killed in this manner. What is the grounds of these people killing Nigerians? Who are they? Let Buhari told us that these people are foreigners, that they are not Nigerians, that they came from the Sahel and what have you. How come people from outside of this shore of Nigeria will come in here and carry out this kind of attacks on our people, and the security agencies the security architecture of Nigeria will be so blinded that they will not notice it, they will not act until they will come and operate sometimes 1 hour or more and kill people and move away, or kidnap people and move in hundreds and move away, nothing, no shooting, no confrontation, nobody stop them, no attack. They carry one machete with you and move around. So you know, several Nigerian stakeholders have said it. For example, OBJ said that there is a colonization agenda by the Buhari government. Then former defense minister, you know, Quir also said it, that you should protect yourself, that the military and the government are colluding with the terrorists to kill us. So what are we doing? What are Nigerians doing? Is it you and I that will go and form policing system? Then it is the government that has what it takes to develop security in Nigeria. It's local government policing and state policing to augment that of federal. But they have left all these things undone. And everybody is talking about how to get back to power. Are they going to rule over dead bodies? Are they going to rule over corpses of people? And when they talk about Christian genocide, they say, no, there's no Christian genocide. Don't tag it, don't stigmatize it, don't profile the killings. And it's very, very obvious. More than 95% of people being killed are Christians, are in communities occupied by Christians. And they're doing it with impunity. Nobody is stopping them. It's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate.
While we're talking about these massacres, Mr. Somi, let's talk about, you know, still on this same Quir state, we're being told that 75 of the deceased were actually Muslims. So that is so we do not color it as a religious genocide.
I don't know how true that may be, but I'm telling you that no single Nigerian ought to die in the hands of these marauding terrorists who we are told are not Nigerians. What is the government doing about it? How do we stop this killing? How do we stop it? Quir State used to be a very peaceful state until you recall not long ago when some people were caught, you know, with dangerous weapons and trucks, vehicles. And they said that it was the office of the NSA that equipped them, that gave them, that armed them and gave them those logistic stuff for them to protect people. But they say these are the people that are attacking us. So I don't know where we're going to go to. I don't know how we're going to do. I think what's important is that the government should show that Nigerians' life matters, and let them devolve the policing system in Nigeria so that Nigerians, you know, will start to protect the environment from local government to the state level, and then before you get to the federal. That is the only way Nigeria could be secured, or Nigerians could be secured. And if they fail to do that, then they shouldn't be there, because the number one function of government is to protect the lives and properties of citizens. So anything that is short of that is an aberration. So I don't know whether it is Muslim, whether it is Christians, Nigerians ought not to die the way they are dying. We should be able to live out our life, complete our assignment while we are here, before we go to meet our maker. But people, you know, uncircumcised, you know, people will just come and be killing Nigerians the way they like. You know, that is an aberration. It is terrible.
All right, then. Thank you so much for your submissions. Let's go to Kaduna State. It's worthy to note that while the Quir State incident was happening yesterday, there were also attacks in the market, Abande market in Benue State, and of course in Niger State as well. Very unfortunate. But in Kaduna State, the 177 worshippers who were abducted from their churches while they were worshiping on the 18th of January have regained their freedom. Now, here is where it gets interesting. 2 weeks after the incident, 80 victims, mostly children, reportedly escaped and they took refuge in nearby forest settlement. 80 children escaped from the kidnappers' camp and adults could not escape. So one would wonder how exactly that happened. Now, the remaining ones, they have regained their freedom. So we don't know if they were released, if they were rescued, if a ransom was paid. Nobody's telling us anything. All we know is that they are back home. We do not know if the 17 motorcycles that were demanded by the kidnappers were provided to them. What we are being told now by the residents is that they just saw that between 11 p.m. and midnight, heavy-duty vehicles were sighted moving into the forest, and later they returned with the abducted persons in the early hours of this morning. So do we call that a rescue?
Well, I cannot say for a rescue, but I think we are happy that these people have been released, whether rescue or anyhow. But, we live in a society where there is no accountability. Nobody accounts for what happened. Nobody will give account. Whatever we see, we just take it that way. But it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate to the extent that Nigerians, will be said to have been kidnapped, and then some government officials will tell you that those people are safe, and eventually they will come back. So is it money that they paid? What did they do? How did they got rescued? And were they rescued or released? These are questions that need to be answered by the authorities. But you see, nobody questions anybody. The people who are in power do not reckon with us. You cannot ask them any questions. They are the boss. We are their slaves. So we just have to keep on the way we are going. But Nigerians need to know: were they rescued? Were they, released? What transpired? And after all that, we will not know what went wrong. Now, if they are giving money, if they were released, after money has exchanged hands, have we not ended up endangering the lives of more Nigerians? Because this money, they will need to recruit themselves, equip themselves, and become more nefarious, more ferocious in their dastardly acts. And is it that they were released, or what happened? Because I can tell you that no terrorist will, after keeping people for more than a week or two, they'll release them like that. Nobody will do that. What is happening is the government part of this thing. To what extent is government involvement in this whole act? Who is fooling who? These are questions you must ask the people in authority.
Thank you so much, Mr. Somi Uranta, for your submissions and for your perspective and opinions, your analysis on the World News at 12 this afternoon. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Before you go, there is actually a breaking development that INEC has registered 2 political parties ahead of the 2027 elections. So we're seeing 2 new political parties coming on board. This has been confirmed by the national chairman, Professor Joash. That's INEC chairman, Professor Joash Amopiton. He says the 2 new political parties are the Democratic Leadership Alliance and the National Democratic Congress. This brings the total number of recognized political parties in Nigeria to 21. Let's get your very brief perspective on this.
Well, INEC, somebody has said that INEC, the judiciary, the legislature are all, they seem to be part of the executive of Nigeria. So they do what they want to do. We will just have to keep watching to see how this plays out. But it's good to hear that new political parties have been registered, like I said, 2 of them. But again, we begin to ask the same questions. What happened to the ones there? Who is been sending, or sharing the problems that occur in the opposition parties, like the PDP, like the Labour parties, like the SDP, even the ADC? Who is in charge? Who has been feeling the crisis in those parties? Well, I think time will tell. Only time will tell where we are headed. Whether we are passing democracy, whether it's just civil rule or authoritarian government or whatever it may be, time will tell.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Somi Uranta. Time will tell. We do appreciate you for joining us on the World News at 12 this afternoon. Enjoy
Thank
the rest
you
of
for
your
having
day.
me.
Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. You have been listening to the World News at 12 right here on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. Just before we wrap up, let's take a look at the top stories again. You heard that South Sudan officials have been sacked for appointing a dead man to the election panel. Relief in Kaduna as abducted worshippers regain freedom. President Tinubu orders deployment of Army Battalion to Quir after terrorist massacre. And Senate passes Electoral Act, denies rejecting mandatory electronic transmission of results. And that is a wrap on the world news at 12 on Voice of the People, 90.3 FM. My name is Chioma Innocent. Good afternoon to you and thank you for listening. Do stay tuned. Matters will come your way